I'll get started and then can take questions. I have that same Masters polo. Hopefully it looks good on you. I think it looks good on me too. So, great to get back out here. Obviously, in my situation, it's just great to be moving around in football cleats again and feeling stronger. Being able to compare it to 6 weeks ago, I feel much more athletic and much less, pain. And so it's just exciting to be back in it and expecting to be able to, practice full go here. And heaven forbid there would be a setback. Outside of that, I feel ready to go, and that's exciting because it has been a long journey. So, tomorrow we'll be able to pick up the tempo a little more, and can't wait for that. So, take any questions you have.
So, yes, Kurt. Coach said you were medically cleared, and you had mentioned August 1st as a date. How did it feel to be cleared a little bit sooner than you had anticipated during the recovery process?
Yeah, it was kind of always a goal to try to speed up the process, but I also learned as it was my first time coming back from a surgery, you only want to speed up as much as your body lets you. So at the end of the day, speeding it up is not as important as just letting your body heal. And if anything, I probably, at times tried to force it too much, and you just got to let it happen. So learned a lot going through the process, and now looking forward to really the last part of the rehab is playing football. I think that's what I need to do now is make cuts, be in football cleats, play football, and that's really how I'm going to rehab this thing to the finish line.
What could you share about the ramp-up plan, and maybe he said maybe there might be some modifications as y'all move along here?
Yeah, I think that would be a more conservative approach. I think I don't want to, over-promise and under-deliver. My desire would be to go out every single day, not have a setback, push, play my normal way, and be able to do everything and go. Because we haven't gone through a training camp yet, it's hard to say, but that is my expectation. But at the risk of over-promising and under-delivering, I think Coach just wanted to temper expectations and say if you have to take a day off or take a period off, or if you have to kind of have a ramp-up period, there's no harm in that with how far away the Steelers game is. But my preference or desire and how I feel would be to just go and let that be the rehab.
How is your relationship with Jesse Bates developing?
Well, as with so many teammates, I need to get to know him more. There's a lot more to go, but I just have a lot of respect for him as a football player, first of all. And I think his presence, there's guys in this league who are great players, but don't really impact anybody else around them. I feel like Jesse goes beyond just being a great player, but he affects the whole secondary, the whole defense. I think that's when you feel like you have a guy who's going just from a good player to a great player, is it's affecting the whole unit. And he also has a humility to his work. It's not like he certainly has a swagger, but it's not like he's always look at me. And he's just going to do his job and be a pro and try to help people along the way. And he asked to watch film together, which tells you something. Just the fact that he would ask, and in doing so, I felt like I learned maybe more than he learned from me. And so we got to do more of that. So that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg right now. But he's also going to be a bit of a thorn in my side during training camp because of the disguises, because of the messy looks. I stopped trying to discern the coverage during the play a long time ago during OTAs because it was that muddy, and I felt like I'm better off just looking for open spaces and going through my progressions, because if I try to figure out what these coverages are, he's doing such a good job disguising them, I'm going to be waiting a long time. So I could talk a long time about Jesse, but I'm really excited to, in a training camp setting at full speed in pads, watch him practice. I can't wait to watch him in games this year. And the last thing I'll say about him is, I'm going to buy jerseys for my kids. I'm probably going to buy a Grady Jarrett jersey for my boys, and I'm probably going to buy a Jesse Bates jersey. If that gives you any idea of who I want my kids to be like, who I want them to wear jerseys of, it'll be Jesse Bates and Grady Jarrett.
Have you ever watched film with the DB like that before in OTAs? Just
Um,
the two of you?
Well, so that would be an example of, I have done it, but that would be an example of if I could go back as a player, I would have done that a lot more.
Yeah.
I regret, you got to know how to get better. And as a young player, you don't even know how. And I just wish I had, in year 1, 2, 3, grabbed the DB and sat down with him and made the time and asked questions. But as a young player, you may not even know the questions to ask. And so now at this stage in my career, I know how to get a lot out of that meeting. And, make no mistake, in my final years, I'm gonna do those kinds of things and maximize those opportunities.
Kurt, for your continued development as a player, even though where you are in your career, the GoPro camera, Give me
Yeah.
an idea about that. Is this the first time you've done something like that, and what that can do for you?
Well, I think it's a great tool for the coaches to be able to hear the play come into my helmet, so they know what was communicated. They can hear me communicate it to the huddle. They can hear anything else being said in the huddle. And it's just one more tool to provide information and feedback for me. I can better feel how I come across. I got to tell you, Archie, that I'll say a joke that I thought was pretty funny, and then I'll go back and listen to it, and I'll say, don't say that. That wasn't good, Or I'll watch it. I'll be like, I thought I was cool, but then I watch the video. I'm like, I'm a nerd, So, and I joke with them. I say, it's kind of like the KGB because, you guys are listening to everything I say. The huddle used to be my time, but now you guys are in there, and the huddle's bugged. So, and I tell my teammates, I say, you guys are not getting let off the hook. If you say, hey, check, what's the player? What do I have here? I said, the whole building knows. So it's probably more like a spy technique than anything else. But feedback is feedback, and it's just one more tool.
How much do you get confirmation as to where your eyes are, things like that? Is that helping you as well?
Yeah, there's some of that too, certainly with where the helmet's going. I think that's another tool that they can use, that I can use. And I think it's a balance, right? We've talked about, hey, it's good to hold your eyes, but there's times where it's, Kirk, your eyes are down the middle way too long. You got to get your eyes over to the throw, or maybe it's the opposite. And hey, you don't have to stare at the throw right away. You got a second here to hold your eyes. So each play is its own entity, and you got to kind of coach that fundamental for each one. But that is one more tool.
Kirk Grady was talking about how you guys kind of bonded because you got hurt at the same time.
Yeah.
Both late in your careers with major injuries. I'm just wondering, when you did get hurt, did you do much research on the guys who had your same injury, age-wise or anything like that, kind of as a comparison?
Yeah, I actually did a top 10 power rankings of people who have torn their Achilles, period. Like Al Gore tore his Achilles. Judi Dench tore her Achilles, I think when she was in the Broadway musical Cats. And, I think you got Kobe, obviously. You got Klay Thompson. You got Kevin Durant. I think Tiger Woods tore his Achilles, but I didn't even realize. So I took a lot of hope, knowing that a lot of people came back and led really successful lives after torn Achilles. Al Gore became vice president. So, there's a lot of positives there. So there was hope for me in that case, and that's kind of where we are. So, I try to learn from those examples. And, whether it's Zoe, Nate Landman, those guys that tore their Achilles, gone on to be great players. So took a lot of hope from that, asked them a lot about their rehab, what they experienced, what I should be aware of. Their perspective was very helpful. And Grady is just, he's been really impressive. Coming back from a knee should be a lot longer than Achilles, but it really wasn't because he's Grady Jarrett. So he just did a great job, doing his thing to get back, and impressive what he's been able to do.
And that being said, Kirk, would you say relief is a appropriate word for you for how you feel when you think about
Yeah.
all that?
I think it's a cautious relief, right? I think there's a little bit of, let's check back in February, because I want to get to where, I've truly got some experience up there after the injury. But no, I feel like there was a lot to work through, and it's now in the rearview mirror, and that is a good feeling.
Kirk, I don't want to call it nerves, but when you're working your way back from a major injury like that, and you're ramping up and speed's coming at you, when all that stuff happens, where are you mentally with things like that?
I'll be okay. The strength's there. If anything, I feel really good, because you're wondering if you're going to have to do it, with your heel in the ground or not being able to get on your toe. And so now that you can, you say, oh, this is gravy. I'm back to my athletic self from before. So, that's a real positive.
Kirk, working off that, taking modified reps today, in terms of taking dropbacks, full speed, planting, where are you at in that?
Yeah, I expect to be able to do it tomorrow whenever we get going with individual and all the team periods. I expect to be able to go and make the throws, and just basically by doing that, that's how it's going to get stronger. That's how I'm going to be able to keep closing the door, is just by playing football full speed.
Is that something you've been able to do yet?
Yeah. So all summer, being able to make those movements as I'm cutting and kind of just testing it as we go, just keep taking another step in how I'm moving.
How'd this offseason feel different, not having to be in your in-laws' basement in your house?
Yeah. So the funny part is we got there March 15th-ish, and we moved right into my in-laws' basement. And we bought the house, I don't know if it was early May. And so then we had a couple touch-ups to do, so we still were in my in-laws' basement. So it was still like 2 more months. It was like a grand finale in my in-laws' basement before. And then this past weekend, I went back up to Michigan just for one last hurrah to see some people before we start, and my wife stayed back here with my one son, and she went right back to my in-laws' basement while I was gone. So I know she likes it there. You know, she gets some grandparent help, so that helps her. And I'm sure we're not quite done with the in-laws' basement. I know that family who comes in to visit for games are going to be able to stay in my in-laws' basement, but no, we got plenty of square footage now for our own space.
To follow up on what you said about playing football being the last part of your rehab, what do you expect to have the preseason games? How will that fit in? Do you think you would like to see?
I want to play, but I think that ask fell on deaf ears. I think, Raheem's model is you're not playing. Like, that's just not, and I don't know if I'm letting the cat out of the bag or anything, but his approach was like, that's just not how we want to do things. I'm sure maybe I could persuade him. Maybe there's a conversation. Who knows how the Dolphins practices go? Maybe he wants to see us in the game. It's just so much that can change. But, I think seeing live bullets and playing is helpful. But I also understand the logic behind not doing it. And everything we do is calculated, and that will be as well.
Kurt, realizing this is day one, a long way to go before you guys get the regular season, but how satisfied were you the way the guys came back and their absorption of what you did in OTAs to what today looked like?
It was impressive. Zach threw a lot at us. I was a little surprised last night, as I saw what we're going to be having to do at practice in terms of the number of motions, formations, concepts, volume of offense. And, we walked through it this morning. We then went out to the practice field, and it was impressive. The retention and the ability to, certainly even last night, just study and be ready by so many guys on this team. I probably used 7 or 8 snap counts, and so just throwing a lot of volume at them, and I think that does allow us to hit the ground running and to keep expanding on what we did all spring rather than need to go back to the very beginning. So I think that's encouraging.
Your thoughts on the locker room updates? We got to see a little bit, we're here very long for, but what can it do kind of to just maybe keeping players here a little bit longer and keep that camaraderie going? Yeah,
it's very nice. The cafeteria is outstanding. Like you said, locker room's great. That's where a lot of guys will hang. The weight room's outstanding. It's just a good-looking facility. It's a privilege to come to work here. And, they ask the veterans where you want to be in the locker room. And so it's kind of a big decision of, who are my neighbors and how close am I to the refrigerator and how close am I to the trash can and the laundry bin. And, so I try to get the best real estate I could. But it was kind of hard to know. So I got Nate Landman and Darnell Mooney. I got Grady Jarrett. So I got some good neighbors, and I told them we're kind of out in the suburbs, but it's a good neighborhood.
You said getting to know the guys. You still have to get to know them. But what are some ways that you try to get to know them? Is it having lunch with them? Talk with them? Yeah, I start with asking questions, whatever it is, whether it's at the locker or at a table. I think at the cafeteria it's helpful to kind of always try to eat with somebody different or a different group just to be able to get to know them. Then you just got to ask questions and. Not make conversation about you, but make it about the other person. And, and I like to get to know people. I think I play better when I know people around me better. So, and that includes coaches. And so just try to build those relationships. That's a big part of what camp is all about. We're staying in the dorms and you try to take advantage of that time. The amenities building last night, it has snacks and stuff. I thought I'll go down there, probably be hanging out. And I guess I got there too early. I was on the early bird special. So I show up and it's just me and Koo. And I'm like, cool, what you doing? Eating by yourself? So we sat there for a little while, and then just as we were finishing, then the whole crowd came in. I was like, I guess we had the early bird special tonight, cool. So, but that's a great place again. The day's over, go there, hang, have a snack, and just get to know guys better. And that's a big part of this year for me is being so new. We got to make up for lost time and have those conversations and build a bridge with each other, and I think that'll help us on the field.
You got a new city. You got obviously new city, new coach. You got a young draft pick that's right behind you that's looking at you for leadership. A lot of guys looking at you for leadership. What's been the biggest adjustment? Even though Atlanta seems more homey to you, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
What's been the biggest adjustment for you, being here?
I think it's the football. I think the off the field stuff is, well, there's a lot. My wife handled it well. We were familiar with the city. It's more that, hey, I used to run this play in my sleep, but now we call it something different. There's a bit of a change in the depth by this guy. We have a little bit way of reading it different. And so you have to kind of not only learn the new stuff, but you have to unwire the old. And I think that's important too, is that instinctually you did it this way, but you got to rewire those instincts because now it's a little bit different. And so that change is always challenging, but football's hard enough, right? So when you kind of add that wrinkle of change, it's tough, but comes with the territory, and did it once before going to Minnesota as a new player, and I'll do it again.
Did you watch the Receivers documentary?
I watched like 2 episodes. I got to kind of work my way through it. It was interesting because it comes out when you're under summer break and, you know, watching football and seeing guys get crushed and see Justin go to the hospital in an ambulance. That was like, I don't know if I want to watch this right now, Julie. Like, I know you're a fan, but like, I'm probably good for now. You know, I'm on my vacation. So it's always good to see guys behind the scenes. I think it was fun to hear people's feedback saying, hey, I know you know Justin Jefferson, but like, we didn't know him, so it was kind of like we felt like we got to know him. And I said, yeah, it was kind of the same way for me last year. There were a lot of people who watched the show who said I didn't know that was who Kirk was. And I think it was the same for a lot of people who don't know these guys. I've gotten to know them a little bit, Pro Bowl and different places, but for people who never get to see them, it's tremendous how it allows them to be seen as people and not just as a football player. So, yeah, you got your finger up. We'll let you. Yeah.
Do you feel that there are any aspects of your game that actually have gotten stronger, either physically or mentally, than before the injury?
Well, I think continuous improvement is something I'm always chasing, and if I don't feel like I'm improving as a player, I'll retire. And so for me, I do feel I'm smarter. I do feel I learned a lot through the injury, matured as a player. I think I'm a way better leader. I think something like meeting with Jesse Bates is just a step forward in my development as a player to do those kinds of things intentionally. So, yeah, I'm getting better, and I think it shows a lot around the league. These quarterbacks who are retiring in year 18, 19, 20, Tom in the case 23, I feel like they play their best years at the end because they are smarter, and it is such a thinking man's game, and they just have all those banked reps. And so, I expect my last years to be my best years, and I do expect continuous improvement still up ahead.
AJ shared with us his favorite snack, his go-to snack for the rookies to get him. So what's the snack?
Mike asked me, he said, what do you want from snacks? I said, trail mix. So sure enough, Mike showed up the next day, been a trail mix. So I was already cracking into it this morning. But, yeah, it's good to have a little something there, and I'm pretty simple that way.
Who are you rooming with over there?
So I'm in a little 4-bedroom nook with Taylor, Kyle Pitts, and Mike. And, yeah, night 1 was good, although the AC was set to 72. We got to get it down. I'm used to sleeping at like 67, and I woke up in the middle of the night with like sweating. I go up to turn it down, and there was a pin. It was locked. So I couldn't. I go, oh, no. So I cranked the ceiling fan, and I didn't really sleep much. And I got up to go to the lift, and I said to Taylor, I'm like, how'd you do? You 72? Are you a 72 guy? Like, my brother likes it warm, but like I like it cold. He goes, I slept like 4 hours. And I was like, all right, we're getting that pin, and we're getting it down to 68 tonight. So that's the goal when I leave here.
Lindstrom said 68 in the old line.
Okay, all right. So we're on the same page. So he and I would be great roommates if we ever needed to. Kyle Pitts, Taylor, and Mike Penix. Yeah. So, all right. Thanks, guys. 68.